All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, coming your way on a Monday evening. It's 6 o'clock Eastern time. Glad you could join us for more college football discussion, debate, and analysis like no other place online. Mark Rogers TV, if you have yet to subscribe, please do. Like and comment as well. That keeps the engine running and allows us to further expand and do what we've done this week in regards to reaching out to a number of people and hopefully bring you some of the best content that you will find in college football. I will promise that it's going to be the most diverse in regards to opinion, because I bring on bloggers, broadcasters, writers from all over the place. Jerry DiNardo from the Big Ten Network last week, Peter Burns from the SEC Network. And now that he's cleared basketball and baseball, I'll be reaching back out to Peter Burns, who's been on our show a number of times, and certainly others. Mitch Light from Athlon Sports joined us last Friday for the first time, and he was very kind to give us a half hour of his time, the managing editor of Athlon Sports. All right, we're kind of running a bit ragged here, so my brain may be a little bit scattered, but I'm here to talk some college football. So first and foremost, before everything else, are your comments and questions and your chat on the live chat. And so I will be responding to all of that, in addition to continuing our look at Sports Illustrated's top 100 college football players for 2018. We looked at the top 10. I'd like to review the top 10 and keep going. Also want to let you know that coming up this week, we've got a huge Wednesday night on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Wednesday night, Ohio State talk at 7 o'clock. Much like the forum, the big panel discussion we had with UCLA last Thursday night, we're going to do the same thing with the Buckeyes, talk about the state of the program, the expectations, Urban Meyer, just the treetop look at Ohio State football and what makes it tick, what it is, the environment, the culture, everything about it. Again, similar to what we did with UCLA last week. Would like to do that with all the big major programs as much as I possibly can, where I've got multiple guests, multiple contributors who would join me on a regular basis. At 8:30, we talk Miami. And then we come back at 9 o'clock. Let's see, that would be 10 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central time, 10 o'clock Eastern to run through the SEC. Then we've got more SEC talk available for you on Thursday night, and we will get back to you on guests from there. I'm excited to hear that Glenn Mason has responded, and hopefully I can track him down and we can keep up the conversation to nail down a time. Glenn Mason of the Big Ten Network, former Minnesota, Kansas, and Kent State Golden Flashes head coach. All right. We'll see who's on the live chat, and we'll go from there. And then we'll look at this top 100, where I already see some flaws in the top 10. Also want to remind everyone that the audio versions of these discussions, the podcast in audio form, is on Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Mark Rogers TV. I don't talk about the audio very much, but certainly that's another avenue that I need to go and need to promote the audio, because most people out there like to consume these conversations in audio form, of course. All right, so on the live chat right now, what do we got? We've got college baseball talk right out of the gate from George with, so Oregon State, Arkansas playing for the baseball championship tonight, game 1. Yes, I will be all eyes on it because that's part of my job. So obviously that's the best 2 of 3, Oregon State and Arkansas, and that's as far as I can go with that conversation. I am going to make a projection that this will not be a preview of the national championship in football. I don't remember these 2 teams playing in football before. All right, 19 Savage talking Texas football. Texas hired the Oregon softball coach. Okay, all right, good to know. Tracking some softball here at Mark Rogers TV, and that's all you guys have at this point are the best of 3 College World Series. I did mention the other day that I've attended two. Have you guys been to the College Baseball World Series in Omaha? I have not been to the new complex. I understand that it's beautiful. I've been to a Rosenblatt Stadium. That was the old stadium, and I think I was there right before they moved to the other stadium. I'm guessing that was somewhere around 2005 that they went to the new stadium. But I was at old Rosenblatt Stadium for 2 years. Don't remember much about what happened. I really don't remember that much. I remember taking in a UCLA Mississippi State game, and there was a major league pitcher, not at the time, of course, but he later pitched in the majors for UCLA. He started that game. I'm going to have to look that up. He was a pretty accomplished pitcher. He was a soft tosser. I'll have to look that up. All right. Have I ever done radio? Not specifically. I never had a radio job. My first broadcasting job was in tiny Ashland, Ohio, WNCO. WNCO is a country music radio station, and they just started a television station that was only a couple years old when they hired me just out of college. So I anchored the news. Funny story I'll tell you at some point about my audition and my interview, because I didn't know I was being interviewed. But that was my first job. And so anyway, the caveat to the job that was nice and took me on my career path that I wanted to go was I had to work news during the week, Monday through Friday, news anchor. But then on the weekends, we did a lot of high school sports and Division III college sports, Ashland University football and basketball. So I immediately stepped into the play-by-play booth, even though did I have any experience in play-by-play? I don't think so. I didn't have any experience play-by-play. But I did Ashland University football and basketball, mainly football. High school football every Friday, and then into the state playoffs on Saturday as well. So high school football and basketball. Announced a swim meet. That was fun. A little semi-pro softball, but generally high school football and basketball. And the very first day on the job as a professional out of college, they had me announce a parade. Now, you talk about a tough first assignment. New town, new station, new job. Day one, you're going to announce a parade. I had no idea what I was doing announcing a parade, but we give it a shot. Have I ever been to Cedar Point? Yes, many times. Used to go at least once a summer, sometimes twice, from the time I was about 7 or 8 until I was 20, 21, something like that. Omaha fans are all behind the Omaha Hogs tonight. I would guess so. Infield is uncovered. That's always a good sign. That's one of the curses of the Midwest this time of year and playing the softball World Series in Oklahoma and Nebraska being the site for the baseball College World Series is the weather. A lot of lightning, a lot of threat of tornado. And that kind of louses up plans from time to time. All right. Top 100 college football players. This is a college football channel. All right. Starting with, again, if you guys remember the top 10, here's where I had issues. Ed Oliver, number 1 from Houston. Stanford's Bryce Love at 2. Christian Wilkins, Clemson defensive end at 3. Khalil Tate at 4. Stop right there. Khalil Tate is not the 4th best football player in the country. He's not the 4th best quarterback in the country. Nick Bosa, 5. Jonathan Taylor, 6. Cleveland Farrell, 7. Jaquan Johnson, the safety out of Miami at 8. Rashawn Gary, 9. And Dexter Lawrence, D-tackle Clemson at 10. And just to process the dominance of the Clemson defensive line, if these rankings are anywhere near accurate, that if they had 3 of the top 10 defensive linemen in the country, if they had 3 of the top 10 and the other 130 schools had the other 7, that would be sheer dominance. But to have 3 of their players along the defensive line be in the top 10 in the nation according to position, regardless of position, yikes. I think we did talk about the top 20. Don't know that I had any specific issues about the next 10. Greedy Williams at 11, Jonah Williams 12, Mackenzie Milton at 13. I thought he was a bit high. Shaq Quarterman 14. Number 15 is Trace McSorley. He's too high. Cam Smith at 16. Number 17 is A.J. Dillon. 18 is Deebo Samuel. Of course, we discussed needing him to stay on the field after playing just 3 games last year and scoring 6 touchdowns. And Trey Adams, offensive lineman out of Washington, who from the time he stepped on the field started for Washington. From the time he stepped on campus, was that good at Washington. So like Jake Browning, he's ending his career here in 2018, having played in 2015 for that Chris Peterson team that was on the cusp. And then 2016, of course, winning the Pac-12, getting to the playoff and moving to left tackle his sophomore season or sometime as a freshman. A.J. Brown at 21, Will Grier 22, who I have ranked ahead of both Trace McSorley and Khalil Tate as quarterbacks. Byron Murphy at 23. David Long at 24. Devin Bush 25. J.K. Dobbins 26. Dobbins at 26. So I'm going to release, I wanted to do it today. Hopefully I'll get to it tomorrow night, releasing my top 10 running backs. I've done my top 10 quarterbacks. Please check out the video and tell me what you think. Top 10 running backs coming out. I was doing the legwork on that today. Didn't quite get it done. But Dobbins at 26, regardless of position, according to SI. Greg Gaines, defensive tackle from Washington, 27. Raekwon Davis, 28. Levante Taylor, 29. Rodney Anderson, interesting player out of Oklahoma at number 30, running back. Rodney Anderson was nowhere to be found on any list this time last year. He only had about 15 or 20 carries in the first 4 or 5 games, and then he exploded. Trey Sermon got nicked up, and they made him more of a scat back, roll back, change of pace guy. They inserted Rodney Anderson, and he cut loose like 1,300 yards in about 1,000 or 1,100 yard rushing. And then he had some big receiving games too. TCU, 139 yards and 2 touchdown receptions. Rodney Anderson, really good player. One of the reasons why OU almost beat Georgia. He had over 200 yards from scrimmage against the Bulldogs. Hey, Mark, I'm a big fan. I just subscribed to your channel. Richard, I appreciate you jumping on board. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. Please tell your friends and family who love college football that we're here. And Richard, if you just subscribed, I don't know how long you've been watching, but again, you get analysis from me. You get it from bloggers and broadcasters and writers from all over the country talking college football. So we aim to bring smart, hardcore discussion, debate, and analysis underneath the surface, not the groupthink, but really diagnose this stuff and look at it and be reasonable and logical and fair and all those things. But still, I want an emotion. College football is about emotion, so I want to hear emotion out of all of us in regards to our teams. And I think that emotion gets ramped up, especially when there's a good debate on the line, and then especially as we near September 1st. Wilkins is a D tackle, but played in the title year due to Bryant's injury. And Austin Bryant's going to be on that list pretty soon as well in this top 100. I don't know why I have to show you my phone when I say that, but the top 100 in college football. I had never heard of Rodney Anderson until I saw him play at the Shoe in September, and really didn't do anything in that game. Wasn't really given opportunities. He had about 3.5 yards per carry against the Buckeyes. Wasn't the reason why Ohio State got manhandled in the fourth quarter by Oklahoma. Might be a bit of a certainly Oklahoma dominated that game late and won by 15 points on the road. Very impressive showing. And Ohio State was one of the 3 to 6 best teams in the country by the end of the season. Let's also understand that, and I just watched part of that game a few weeks ago, that that game was very much in doubt. It's not like Oklahoma controlled the game from start to finish like many people depicted. That game was 10-6, 13-6, 13-9, something like that. Ohio State 13-10, Ohio State in the fourth quarter. So anyway, Oklahoma took over and won the game. Anderson had a broken ankle as a freshman and then broke a bone in his neck. He would have played with P. Ryan and Mixon, but was hurt. I vaguely remember that. Too bad 28. Thanks for jumping in. And that's why we've got you guys on here too. I had somebody jump all over me last week because for about 3 minutes, I misidentified the play Ohio State, Penn State, where the wide receiver and the defensive back wrestled for the football in the end zone. It was a simultaneous catch. And I mentioned that was Damon Arnett for Ohio State. And it wasn't even like we finished the conversation and I never corrected myself. And even if I had, if somebody would have politely said, hey, I want you guys to correct me. So if I say something that's factually wrong, I want you guys to point that out and correct me. But this person was just like, you're incompetent and just going nuts. And I actually corrected myself without looking it up. We were in the midst of a conversation. I think it was Claire Crawford and myself. And about a minute later, I said, no, I think that was Kendall Sheffield. And I corrected myself. And this person's still like blasting me more than multiple times, more than one time, multiple times. And I just find that humorous because if people really tracked it, if they really knew we all make mistakes, we all have typos, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be capable and competent. And you really know who knows their stuff and knows what they're talking about if you listen for a period of time. But everybody can have a slip on a name or not remember a name or displace a particular name at a given time. That happens all the time. That the big boy networks do that. They screw up facts all the time. That goes under the radar. So everybody does it. Who would win between Georgia 2017 and Georgia 2018, and would it be close? Well, Lamar, I'm going to answer it in two ways. If they played right now, you would think the 17 team would win because of all the NFL talent that left. But give that team from 2018 12 or 13 games to play and then play a playoff game against the 18 or the 17 team. And I think it's probably a different story. But all you have to do is look at the talent that exited on defense. In particular, everybody thinks Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. That would not be my concern for the 2018 team. It would be having to lose all that defense. And but those guys are going to mature. They're going to get better. And I would expect Georgia to be in a similar place after 12 games. And they have more margin for error this year because they don't have a trip to Notre Dame like they did last year. They have no challenging out of conference games until possibly the Georgia Tech game at the end of the season. And their run in the SEC is, of course, Auburn out of division. And I don't recall off the top of my head. Oh, they've got a trip to LSU. That could be difficult as well. That's a pretty tough pick, considering we haven't seen 2018 Georgia. I think OU controlled the game for the most part. Every OU drive crossed the 50, but a missed field goal fumble at the Ohio State 25 and another fumble at the 50 kept it tight in the first half. Very fun series. Yeah, it was a fun series. Of course, Ohio State dominated in Norman. Then Oklahoma came back, and you're right, too bad 28 in terms of total yardage, even though Ohio State might have led at halftime, I believe 10-9. Oklahoma had a decided yardage advantage. They basically took every drive and went from their 20 to the Ohio State 30 or 40. And like you say, a fumble at the 25 and gave it up, made stupid plays, or Ohio State stiffened up and would get a drive-stopping kind of sack or tackle for loss. There was a fumble in there as well. There was a fortunate play, I believe, for Ohio State in which Baker Mayfield threw a backwards pass that was very close, and it was decidedly a backwards pass if you watched the replay, but still it was close, and Ohio State benefited from that to hang in the game. But the Buckeyes offense was awful in that game. Nice to see teams like OU and OSU do the home and home thing. That's what college football is all about. Who would win on a neutral field, 2014 Ohio State or 2016 Clemson? All right. Well, that Ohio State team was, 2016 Clemson. Of course, our Clemson people are going to say Clemson, and I'm most likely going to say Ohio State. If you go with the NFL talent quotient, then it's Ohio State. Who knows? Clemson had the better quarterback. Zeke Elliott, Michael Thomas. Wow, that team was loaded. The Clemson team. Yeah, Mike Williams, Artavis Scott at wide receiver, Hunter Renfrow. Wow, I think Ohio State might have made some hay along the defensive front with Clemson's offensive line. Wayne Gallman was a really good back. Nothing special. He's not in the Zeke Elliott class. Wow, that Ohio State secondary was loaded. The Ohio State defense in 14, probably better than Clemson's 16 defense. Deshaun Watson, though. Deshaun Watson. I'd have to say Clemson, considering the fact that Clemson has never lost to Ohio State. Ohio State's offensive line was really, really, really good in 14. Yeah, they were. Yes, they were. A number of those guys are starting on offensive lines in the NFL right now. And that might be the difference in the game right there. Ohio State's ability at the offensive point of attack with the line play versus Clemson's offensive line being good, but maybe not good enough. But Deshaun Watson. All right, top 100. I don't know if you guys are too interested in this, but we'll keep through it here. Justice Hill, running back, Oklahoma State at 31. Austin Bryant, D-end at Clemson. There's your Austin Bryant call at 32. Drew Lock, quarterback, Mizzou. Check out the video that we posted with Mike Laval and Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama on SEC top 5 quarterbacks and running backs. Big debate about Drew Lock and who should be number 1. N'Keal Harry, wide receiver, Arizona State at 34. We talked Arizona State football and N'Keal Harry in particular. He's a freak. Talked about him with Jordan Kay from SB Nation recently. I just did a little research on number 35 here. Devin Singletary, running back, Florida Atlantic. Posted some of the most ridiculous scoring numbers we've seen since Barry Sanders and Monte Ball. The third most rushing touchdowns ever last year. Devin Singletary with 32 ran for about 1,900 yards. So Devin Singletary against Oklahoma in Norman, week 1. There's some Clemson offensive line love, but first Cam Akers at 36, who I ranked as, I believe, the second or best running back. No, I ranked him the second best running back in the ACC. That's another video to check out. Top 5 ACC running backs. Check out that video with Ryan Cantor from Shaking the Southland. Number 37 is some Clemson offensive line love. Mitch Hyatt, David Sills, the wide receiver from West Virginia at 38, Troy Dye, linebacker, Oregon. And as we go through this list, notice that there are, I believe, 3 Oregon defenders on the list. And that's one thing I previewed and talked about when I knocked out the Dark Horse teams for 2018. Oregon is paper thin in the secondary, especially, but really on defense overall. But if they stay healthy, they have some serious standout players. Maybe if you take the top 3 to 5 players on every defense in the Pac-12, Oregon might have the best 3 to 5 players. And this is one of them right here, Troy Dye. Draymond Jones, number 40 on the list, defensive end, Ohio State. All right, so you got Clemson with those 3 in the top 10 off the defensive line. Ohio State's got Bosa at 5 and Draymond Jones at 40. And I would think somebody else is going to jump in there from the Buckeyes, probably Chase Young. I think Jake Fromm is the best quarterback in the SEC. I had him at number 4, I believe. I went Tua, Drew Lock, Jarrett Stidham from Jalen Hurts. Drew Lock is the best quarterback in the SEC, 4,000 yards, 44 TDs last year. That's ridiculous. Okay, Pigskin Pete. 18 touchdowns 18 against Missouri State, UConn, and Idaho. Keep that in mind. That line would open a hole, and you might as well blow the whistle toward the points and save the chase. Come on, we put up 38. It's actually 35 on a Bama defense that was better than OSU defense. The issue is I'm not sure how much OSU would have scored. They might have scored on us. All right. Yeah, we'd have to go through those teams and go through how they actually scored the points. But 35 points against Bama. Yeah, 35-31 was the final, I believe. Scored 35 the year before, right? What was the score the year before? 40-35, something like that. 45-40. And the last touchdown was a garbage touchdown. But yeah, that Ohio State team scored 42 points against Alabama's defense. Of course, it was 2 years earlier. So we could go on forever about Ohio State against Clemson and whatever else was thrown out there. But yeah, I would have to give the talent advantage overall to Ohio State. But again, Deshaun Watson, when you've got a quarterback who's arguably the best quarterback of the last 20 years in your corner, and not just from a talent standpoint, a game-to-game consistency standpoint, but a guy that came through in the clutch time and time again, that's tough to argue against. That's a difficult one. Clemson won the Natty on a pick in 16. Blade signed. I didn't see any updates yet. Yeah, 45-40. All right. What signing are you guys talking about? Anyway, what do you guys think? 41 through 50. We've got Nick Fitzgerald, quarterback, Mississippi State at 41. David Edwards, offensive lineman, Wisconsin at 42. Tavon Coney, linebacker, Notre Dame at 43. There's Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State. Ole Miss offensive lineman Greg Little, 45. Remember when he was recruited and signed. DeAndre Baker, corner, Georgia, 46. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss at 47. They've got the two Ole Miss wide receivers there, both in the top 50. It's pretty interesting with Jordan Ta'amu at quarterback. Stanley Morgan, wide receiver, Nebraska, 48. Biggie Marshall, corner, USC at 49. And Dalton Risner, offensive lineman, Kansas State at 50. If it's on the internet, it's got to be true. Hey, Mark, did you hear a Michigan State quarterback recruit flip to Ohio State? I did. I heard about that. I can't think of the kid's name. But yeah, I did catch that. I'm not a recruiting guy, but I did see that. Mark, I think OSU has their work cut out just to win their division. You are right about that. First, they got to get by TCU in week 3, which obviously has nothing to do with the Big Ten, but in terms of the national championship path, that's going to make it difficult, just like it basically may, depending on what happens elsewhere. And you can't talk about one team and just say this is what they need to do to win the national championship or go to the playoffs unless you say undefeated. Of course, undefeated means you're going if you're in the Power 5. But other than that, Ohio State, basically, if they would have lost to Iowa and didn't lose to Oklahoma, then they're in, or vice versa. So you could say the same thing this year. The TCU game is vital because if they lose that game, then that sets them up to most likely need to be perfect in the Big Ten. Or if they get by TCU as expected, then they've got a one-game air that the one mulligan in the Big Ten. which seems like, okay, that's reasonable. But Michigan State, Penn State. Yeah, that's going to be tough. Penn State on the road hasn't lost a home game in the last 2 years, including beating Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State 2 years ago, Iowa, and some others. Jarrett Stidham is the quarterback that you could add to any roster in the SEC and improve the offense. So, Lamar, you're right there with me on that one. So I talked about Jarrett Stidham during our conversation about the top 5 quarterbacks, and I just think this is a kid that played only 7 or 8 games at Baylor. Then he gets thrown in at Auburn, and it has to face much better defensive play, much better defenders on every level of the defense in the SEC, and he performed extremely well. Yes, he had the benefit of a great running game, but he got tossed around against Clemson for 11 sacks and still bounced back and had an outstanding season, almost 67% on his throws. Clemson alum likes Wisconsin to win the Big Ten versus the Ohio State Penn State winner. Not buying Michigan. Harbaugh is a snowflake. I think the last time Penn State lost a home game was to Michigan in November of 2015. College World Series update. Currently in a weather delay as storms take shape and may arrive in 2 to 3 hours. What a professional way to say this was a dumb decision. Clemson sacked Stidham 11 times. Yes, I thought so. No Ducks recruiting guys retweeted anything, but we have to do. Okay. I got to give a lot of credit to the Big Ten for dropping FCS games conference wide. Should all conferences do that, or should all conferences be forced to do that? It's a great question. So in terms of the competitive balance, if that's all that mattered, was we need a legitimate schedule for everyone to determine who we select for the playoff and to make it equitable, and there should be no gimme games, then we wipe out the FCS and say, go play your own football. But many of those football programs are helped greatly by the paychecks that they get from the likes of the Power Five. So in a 12-game season in which these kids basically have a full-time job most of the year, I don't have an issue with them playing a quote-unquote scrimmage. And that's not even true for all of them, because we've seen the likes of Minnesota and Northwestern and Kansas State and Baylor and others get knocked off from time to time. But it's probably a 98% certainty, maybe not quite that high, 95% certainty that those are automatic wins. So I don't mind 1 out of 12 games as an FCS game. I'm good with that. It's just that when trying to think who this year, there's a few teams who don't play a Power Five. A Power Five team that plays no Power Five games. Kansas might be one of them. It used to be a lot of teams. Baylor for a number of years, Kansas State wouldn't play a Power Five out-of-conference game. And so that's changing pretty rapidly. And then the teams that used to schedule 1 now schedule 2, many of them. And, of course, those ACC and SEC teams that have those built-in rivalries, a lot of them go and schedule another one, and they schedule 2 Power Fives, and you guys know I love that. What else do we have here? Michigan's year is 19. Clemson alum 98. I don't know if you were around for me listing off the SI top 100 players, where they have 3 Clemson defensive linemen in the top 100 players, and how ridiculous that is if you just let that sink in. On the same defensive line, 3 of the top 100 players, not just defensive linemen, players. That's how good the defensive front is. Now, that's not saying that SI has a handle on everything and their list is perfect, but that just speaks to it's the best defensive line in the country. Well, in the SEC, a great quarterback is only part of what you need to win every week, which is tough to do in the SEC West, so I don't mind giving Stidham props. All Power 5 conferences should stop playing FCS games. I disagree with you, Mark. I was not impressed with Jarrett last year. Shaky when not at home, and one running game wasn't dominant. So, Ryan, of course, that would be the Clemson game, not at home. LSU on the road. The bowl game, the SEC championship game. The numbers look good. What games did I see? I did not see them play Clemson. I don't remember watching that game. There must have been a couple other good games on, but I don't remember watching Clemson Auburn that night. I did see Auburn play the Iron Bowl. I saw the SEC championship game. I did not see the LSU game. I don't know who else I saw Auburn play. I saw the first Georgia game too. So I saw the two Georgia games, the Alabama game and the bowl game against Central Florida. I did see those games. Put all the cupcakes up front, unlike the SEC. Navy Thomas, I know that's your you're on a mission to get everyone to play those cupcake games in September. It doesn't really make any difference to me when they play them, as long as Alabama doesn't get to play Charleston Southern the week before the Iron Bowl and Auburn's got to play Mississippi State. As long as they're both playing cupcakes, it doesn't bother me. Then they have to go play the SEC championship game in the next week. And then the bowl game or the postseason is so far off, I don't think there's an advantage because that's 5 or 6 weeks later. All right. I wouldn't be too concerned. Clemson, they gave up 45 to LSU, who only scored 21 against Troy. Clemson plays 2 SEC teams every year, of course. South Carolina, then another this year, Texas A&M. So, yeah, it's been Texas A&M for 18 and 19. Auburn, the last 2 years, Clemson won both of those games, the 14-6 game with the 11 sacks last year. Then they won a tougher than expected game the year they won the national championship on the Plains. But I'm trying to think who they played before that, Clemson alum. I don't know that they play the SEC every year. They played a home and home with Georgia around 2013, 2014, in that range. Home and home with Georgia, and of course the South Carolina games at the end of the year. But in terms of doubling up, I guess that those 3 times they've done it, they've done a home and home. Texas A&M, Georgia, and Auburn. Ohio State with 11 Power 5 teams this season. Of course, Oregon State a bit shaky. Auburn 4 of the last 5 years. Wait a minute. Clemson has played Auburn 4 of the last 5 years? Is that what we're saying? They played Auburn the last 2 years. They played Georgia before that, right? Not every year. I'm not the one who said it. All right. What else do we have in here? Let's go back to our top 100. Lamar letting us know Jarrett Stidham had 60 yards in the second half of the LSU game. Of course, they were up 21-0 in that game, or 20-0, and blew that game, and it still didn't hurt them toward getting toward the college football playoff. They were right there before the SEC title game. Okay, at number 51, we've got Dylan Moses, linebacker, Alabama. 52, Michael Dieter, offensive lineman, Wisconsin. 53, Stephen Carr, USC running back. At 54, a DB out of Boston College, Lucas Dennis. Taylor Rapp, safety, Washington's at 55. Chase Winovich, linebacker, Michigan, 56. Kendall Joseph, another Clemson defender. I believe that's 5 at number 57. Myles Gaskin, finally going to conclude his career at Washington. Seems like he's been there forever. Trey Smith, offensive lineman from Tennessee, at left tackle at 59. And Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle, Notre Dame, at 60. All right. Now comes the portion of the live stream where I ask you what you want to hear about, what content you want to see. So I'm hearing lists. Go nuts on lists. So that said, this is probably going to take us to the start of the season. I have produced a top 10 quarterback list, and I'm about to release the running backs. I'll go through all the positions: wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary, special teams. Then I need to rank coaches, huh? And I'm going to get to as many top 5 in each conference, but I could do those by myself, or I could try to do it the way I'm doing it now, where the other night I brought on Mike LaValle and Stephen Smith to talk SEC quarterbacks and running backs. But to do that is taking me forever to make all those contacts. I could just try to knock them out myself, top 5 at each position in each conference. Then I've got to rank the schedules. And then I have to make my predictions for every team. And that's probably going to be a full plate right there. LSU should have beaten Troy. No one. All right. I don't want to dig into that LSU Troy game. Wasn't that thing 24-7 before LSU got a little bit closer? I don't know that they should have. Top 10 greatest defenses of all time. Example, 2011 Alabama. Okay, NCIS Fanatic 21. Okay, Navy Thomas 8. Hate to call you out here. Buckeyes would never schedule Troy. If I'm not mistaken, 2009, Ohio State hosted Troy. You can verify that for me. And if I remember scores correctly, it was 28-10. Playoff committee should consider the betting line more. Jim John. Who's Jim John? Never seen you before. Jim John, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, voice of college football. We are the voice of college football. Myself, you, all the contributors, all the guests, the voice of college football. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV. Please subscribe. You will find here the best discussion, debate, and analysis in college football. There's my pitch. Thank you. We played Troy in 08 after the USC game. Okay, that was 08. I thought it was 09. 08. Thank you. OSU played Nevada last year. Yeah, Pigskin Pete, you understand everybody plays cupcakes. Who did Clemson play last year? Kent State? 100 years ago. All right, Navy Thomas. Just trying to hold you accountable. We hold each other accountable, right? All right, here was our big game by year. Auburn in 2010 and 11 and 12. Georgia 13-14, Notre Dame 15, Auburn 16-17, A&M 18 and 19. And I'm guessing Clemson alum 98 because of the Notre Dame series that Clemson, like the rest of the teams in the ACC, is going to have a lot of double up, meaning you got South Carolina, you got Notre Dame. So you got 2 difficult games there. So you're not going to go out. The ACC in those seasons is pretty much scheduled. You're out of conference for you. So you're always going to play the Palmetto Bowl against South Carolina. And then the ACC says you got to play Notre Dame these years. So you're kind of done with it in terms of going out and scheduling a legitimate opponent those years. Hoghead, howdy. Good to see you out there. Arkansas fan, I would think, all pumped up and ready for the College World Series, but joining us because of the weather delay. I believe the World Series is scheduled to start at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We're about 10 minutes away from that, but yeah, going to be sitting around, so you might as well stay on the line with us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Y'all played UNLV last year, I think. Yes, it was UNLV was the game, not Nevada. The Ohio State 3 non-conference games last year were Oklahoma, Army, who turned out to be a pretty good team. They went 10-3. They beat San Diego State and they beat Wake Forest. Think about that. Ohio State took grief last year about their non-conference games, aside from obviously being overwhelmed by Oklahoma. That was not a good performance. But I found it funny that they took heat about playing Army. I don't know how many times I heard that, and I thought, for a second opponent, It's actually a decent opponent. They shouldn't be bragging, or it shouldn't be to their credit that they beat Army like 38-7, but that shouldn't be laughable either. They're a quality independent. They beat San Diego State, who beat Arizona State and Stanford. Army beat them. Army beat Wake Forest, who beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. So that was not a bad win. It just more knuckleheadedness out there in the media talking about and analyzing these teams. Should conferences drop championship games? Absolutely not, Johnny Bays. No. We want championship games. Hard to play often enough, I'd argue. Biggest three are South Carolina, Florida State, Georgia Tech. Don't know what you're alluding to there. Okay, Hoghead. Sorry, you're a Tennessee fan or a Texas fan. We started calling Fulmer Hoghead, so a Tennessee fan, when he would blow a big game early in his career. Really? Because he's got a head like a, yeah, I see that. Yeah. It's a pretty meaty head he's got going there. Pretty, and I'll stop right there. No dropping conference championships. Absolutely. Army beat Navy. Yes, they beat Navy. So they beat Navy, San Diego State, Wake Forest. Yeah, they've got a good program. Yes, Army went 10-3 last year, Jamie. Should join the Big Ten. Okay. Notre Dame should be in the Big Ten. And you want to drag out an old video. Maybe this is something I'm going to do, but I'm not even going to mention it. I'm just going to do it. Okay. And remember our contest, folks. So if you subscribe to Alonso1219, then you bring subscribers to Mark Rogers TV. Do this between now and July 15th, and whoever brings the most subscribers to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, you get some serious swag, good-looking quality gear from Alonso1219, who is generous enough and believes in my channel enough to have offered up a swag giveaway. So again, subscribe to Alonso1219, then bring subscribers to Mark Rogers TV, and the person who brings the most before July 15th, you win quality swag, hat, a t-shirt, or one of those fancy chains. If you like the canes, it's going to be, of course, the turnover chain, but it can be a selection of your choice, as they say. I always wanted Navy and the ACC to get in Maryland again. Notre Dame talk. Okay, let's wrap up on the top 100 players. So we knocked out all the way up through 59. Now we got, okay, all the way through 60. Knocked out the top 60. Here we go at 61. Justin Herbert, who I mentioned and named as my number 2 quarterback in the country. Quarterback, Oregon. 61's Herbert. 62, Khaleke Hudson, linebacker, Michigan. 63, another Clemson defender, Trayvon Mullen. 64 is Colin Johnson, who had a very productive season with Texas last year and should see his numbers climb with more stability at quarterback. Jake Fromm at 65, quarterback, Georgia. 66, Benny Snell, Kentucky. And you want to hear somebody talk about Benny Snell and how good Benny Snell is. Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football, who joins us from time to time. 67 is Joe Jackson, D-end, Miami. 68 is Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman, Georgia. T. Higgins at 69, love him. How many Clemson players are on this thing? And at 70, Damian Harris, running back, Alabama. Clemson's got Hyatt, the offensive lineman, the 3 D linemen, Higgins, Mullen, the corner. So at least 6. And I guess that's it. Wow. 6 of the top 70 players, according to SI from Clemson. It's missing our best player. Know who that is. Who's your best player? I would think one of those D linemen is your best player, right? I'd say Clemson owns the top whatever. Damian Harris. All right, let's knock out the rest of this list, and then we'll see what else you guys have on the chat here. 71, Mark Gilbert, cornerback, Duke. 72, Sutton Smith, D end from Northern Illinois. 73, Jonathan Ledbetter, D end, Georgia. Bo Benshowel, offensive lineman, Wisconsin, the second Wisconsin offensive lineman in the top 74. So what I like about this list is they're actually seriously considering offensive line play. They usually just given the token couple All-Americans. Jordan Ta'amu, quarterback, Ole Miss at 76. I think I missed 75, Devin White, the linebacker from LSU. 77, Jeffrey Simmons, DN, Mississippi State. Lavert Hill, corner, Michigan, 78. Aziz Al-Shair, linebacker, FAU, 79. Shea Patterson, 80, Michigan quarterback. Lil Jordan Humphrey, wide receiver, Texas, 81. 82, Anthony Johnson, wide receiver, Buffalo. There is Jarrett Stidham, 83. Tua, 84. Tua Tagovailoa at 84. Albert Okwukbenum. I am not, this is the first player on the list that I got to admit, I don't know of this guy. And he plays for a major school. Who out there knows who Albert Okwuegbunam Okwugbunam. I'm going to have to look this guy up and the pronunciation, and I'm going to work him into many of my discussions between now and the start of the season. And then if he has as big a year as this projection is, as a top 100 player in college football, then we'll be talking about him. He is the tight end for Mizzou. Yeah, Ryan, thank you. So you guys play Mizzou, obviously, every year, so you're aware of him. I watched Missouri play Texas. That was it. 86, Derek Brown, defensive end, Auburn. 87, LJ Scott, running back, Michigan State. 88, Nate Herbig, offensive lineman, Stanford. 89, Jalen Jelks, defensive end, Oregon. 90, Jalen Rager, one of the fastest players in the country, wide receiver, TCU. Isaiah Buggs, DN from Alabama at 91. There's Jake Browning, who I consider to be the second best quarterback in the country, not the second most talented, second best quarterback in the country out of Washington. Caleb Wilson, the tight end from UCLA at 93. There's Travis Etienne, Clemson running back, 94. TJ Edwards, the linebacker from Wisconsin, who's an exceptional player. Ugo Amadi, the corner from Oregon. See another Oregon defender at 96. App State cornerback Clifton Duck at 97. Ben Banagu, the D tackle from TCU at 98. Joe Giles Harris, linebacker Duke at 99. And the 100th best player in college football and the first at this position, number 100. And he better well be the best kicker in the country because he's at 100 and the only special teams player on the list, Deebo Samuel. Rodrigo Blankenship, Georgia. Bama will lose 2 games this year, no playoffs for you. Navy Thomas 8, find those losses for me. Auburn goes to Tuscaloosa. Mississippi State goes to Tuscaloosa. They get a bit of a light touch with Louisville in the non-conference. I don't see it. All right, folks, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is what I'm supposed to do as a YouTuber. I'm supposed to ask for subscribers. I'm supposed to ask for likes and comments. It drives the channel. So if you watched me before about 2 months ago, I never talked about subscribing or liking or commenting, but I will do that from now on because that's the textbook way to drive the engine and try to get subscribers, likes, and comments. So please, if you like the content here, please like, subscribe, and comment to the content. Even if you disagree, we got love, healthy discussion here. And the Google Play, iTunes, Podbean, and Stitcher is available for the audio. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Ohio State blowout with Steve Hellwagon, Claire Crawford, and Tony Gerdeman at 7 Eastern Time. Ohio State, we're all over it for at least an hour. Miami at 8:30, SEC talk at 10 Eastern. Then Thursday night, we talk SEC. That's the only thing I've got scheduled. Otherwise, I'm going to be releasing videos, and this is what I'm going to do. This is my commitment to you. Other than maybe some other things that come to mind, like just other things I'd like to talk about. And besides the live streams, in terms of cutting analysis, we're going to go through top 10 positions nationally. Going to give you my coaches' rankings. And then what's going to be kind of scattered all over the place, depending on who's able to join me. Top 5 positional rankings in every conference. That's going to be kind of sketchy. Thus far, I've only done the SEC top 5 at running back and quarterback, and top 5 in the ACC at running back. So I've got my work cut out for me there. So that could be a little sporadic, but top 10 at every position nationally, coaches rankings, schedule rankings, and then my predictions on every team. That's what's coming. We got Jordan Humphrey's stats. We got AJ Brown's stats. Greg Jennings, West Virginia, also left off. Strong work, SI. Navy Thomas 8 always wants me to tackle these topics that need a little digging. The new redshirt rule and the new transfer rule. So the best people for me to... So the best way to attack that is for me to get somebody on here who's looked that over, written an article, dug into that, and then I can play off of them and we can talk about it. Because for me, just to give you my thoughts, it just takes up too much time. I need to get the content out there. Once the SEC stops buying players, discussion with Claire, Tony, and Steve be on Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Ohio State, 8:30 Eastern. Miami, 10 p.m. Eastern. SEC. Thursday, I've got a couple things I don't remember besides talking SEC on Thursday. All right. And sometimes, as somebody did yesterday, they just said, throw as many lists at us as possible. You sound like my son. He says, Dad, just lists. That's all people want to see. They just want you to rank everything. Just rate and rank everything all the time. Johnny Bays, I appreciate it. Johnny Bays reminding everyone about the last 3 times to give the video the thumbs up. Thank you so much. And again, I don't mind people that disagree. So when I ask for the thumbs up or I ask for the comment, it doesn't have to be complimentary. If you disagree with me on something, just be respectful and let's start the discussion, debate it. I love the debate. And think about this, everybody. On September 1st, even a few days before that, it is now June 25th, whatever the date is, something like that. So in 2 months and a couple days, we are going to have college football. Whatever that first game is that involves an FBS team the week before, it's like week 0. Remember last season, Oregon State and Colorado State played before everybody else the week before. Like I was all over that game. Like normally I'd be like Oregon State, Colorado State. That's like the 37th game on my priority list. But since nobody else was competing with it, the week 0, the week before, August like 25th, I was all over every play of that Oregon State, Colorado State and pumping up analysis after the game. I'll do the same thing this year. Last year, of course, it was Stanford Rice playing in Australia. We'll do the same thing this year. The week prior, week 0, there's a few games. And then, of course, September 1st, Saturday is week 1 with a really good handful of games, including Northwestern Minnesota, Northwestern Purdue, pretty important Big Ten Western Division game on Thursday night to start the season. Usually we get a decent SEC game, like a South Carolina Vandy type game, Texas A&M, South Carolina, which was the first. Here's a trivia question that I just gave you the answer to. First game ever on the SEC network. Kenny Hill threw for 5 Bills plus against South Carolina. A South Carolina team that was ranked in the top 10 and shouldn't have been. We had talked about that the entire summer, that the secondary was rubbish, and it proved it that day. You always have good instant analysis, and I love that. So my basic take on Saturday, my basic approach, unless something else comes up around the household with the family, but especially once it gets cold outside. But I try to lock in on college football as best I can. But and that's usually from noon till like 2 in the morning. Again, unless something else comes up, and I have to be other than a college football analyst. But I start out at noon. I try to get like 3 screens fired up, and I prioritize one game, and I got my notepad here, and I'll start taking notes on games. And then, of course, the course of the game may change my priority, because maybe Michigan State, Wisconsin play at noon. But if it's, and that's like, okay, this is the best game, I'm going to focus on Michigan, Wisconsin. And then maybe my second game's like NC State and Louisville. And then my third game is like a marginal SEC game. It's like Kentucky, Vandy, or something like that. So there's my 3 games at noon. But Kentucky Vandy turns into a 17-all game with 3 minutes left, while Wisconsin's blowing out Michigan State 31-3 at half. So I may cut a video and just knock it out and say, hey, Wisconsin dominated the first half. This is my analysis. They're going to win this game. Boom. And then I focus, and I kind of switch around depending on where the action is. And then that 3:15 to 3:45 window is kind of similar to 3:30 to 3:45 Eastern time during an NFL Sunday, where I'm just all over the place trying to scan the best games and try to click back and forth to get those fourth quarter drives and those last minute drives in, and try to track it all. And then it all starts over. And by the time I cut my noon analysis of the noon games, it's usually second quarter of the 3:30 games. So I typically miss like the first quarter of the 3:30 games, but then I lock in, early second quarter, and then I finish out the 3:30 games. And then, of course, those 7 o'clock games kick in, and then the primetime games. And it's the same thing where I give the analysis for the 3:30 games. And then by the time that rolls around and I get all that knocked out and posted, that takes a long time. It's second quarter of the primetime game, and then I finish that out. You get the deal. And then we're here till 2:30 in the morning with Washington State and Cal playing a 58-37 game. Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and SEC all depend on Texas. We're talking about recruiting, of course. Clemson, Bama, Wisconsin, and a wild card, maybe Washington. Do we really consider Washington a wild card? They're the favorite in the Pac-12, Clemson alum. Somebody like Skip Bayless. Too bad 28 like Skip Bayless. So back when Skip Bayless first started, or at least first started on television, had a lot of respect for him. That has kind of waned through the years. I think he's a bit of a blowhard. Is that the word? That just basically just argues things that make no sense. Like the whole LeBron, attacking LeBron all the time for anything. He can never do anything right. Even when he hits a game-winning shot, there was something wrong. Or if his team loses and he scores 51 points, well, he could have done more. And yeah, it's just it's his job to be critical, but to just slam, just like to target one athlete, and regardless of what that particular person does, just nitpick their game is just a bit much. Gets to be a bore. Get Skip on the show. I told you guys to suggest anybody. Skip Bayless. I will do my damnedest to get Skip Bayless on the show. I will just, I don't know if bugging him would be the best route. NCIS Fanatic 21. Playoff will look like this. Bama, Clemson, the Ohio State, Washington. Too bad 28. Yeah, wouldn't that be something? We get Skip Bayless on here. That would be great. If I could have 5 guests, and then I'm going to shut it down because I need to do that other thing I do for work. If I had 5 guests that I could choose from, Paul Feinbaum would definitely be one. Herb Street's really good. I like him, but that might be a bit, it'd be a great discussion, but there wouldn't be a whole lot to really debate about, I don't think. I've always thought David Pollack was exceptional. Big David Pollack fan. I like Jesse Palmer. Does a great job. Danny Cannell. Danny Cannell. That would be a good talk. And who else was I thinking of? Joel Klatt. I like Joel Klatt. I don't know what you guys think of those guys, but yeah, Joel Klatt would be exceptional as well. And there's a ton of others that would be great to get. All right, everyone. You know what we do here, so I don't have to sell it to you. But if there's anybody watching who has run across Mark Rogers TV for the first time, or maybe you've caught a few videos, but if not locked in, college football is a mere 2 months away. You need to get ready. You need to get prepared. You need to have the best information, insight, and knowledge base. And here it is at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. Plus, there's my analysis. And coming up over the next few months, you got top 10 at every position in college football, coaches, rankings, top 5 at as many positions in every conference we can get to, schedule rankings, predictions for every team, and much, much more, especially once we get to August with conference media days, followed by fall camp starting that first week of August. We'll be all over it here at Mark Rogers TV. So for any of the comments that were exceptionally good that I did not get to, I apologize. But certainly comment to the videos, and I get to as many as possible. I explained to you guys more recently, the more the comments, obviously, the less that I can get to. But I try to scan the comments and respond to the most that I possibly can, and respond to the best comments, and respond if I see somebody's commented 8 or 10 times. I try to make sure I at least respond to one of your comments. So I appreciate the time. Thanks for making this channel what it is. It's not me. It's we are the voice of college football. So thank you so much. And we will strike up the live stream. Certainly don't know what's going to be coming your way in terms of content necessarily tomorrow. Tomorrow is a bit of a packed day, but I will be working behind the scenes to get you more content out very soon. And certainly Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time with Ohio State Talk, 8:30 Miami, 10 o'clock Eastern time with the SEC. We will see you guys soon, and you have a great night.